This morning, we have Kirk-Anthony Hamilton, co-founder of Tech Beach Retreat, a technology platform built to connect Caribbean startups with leading global technology companies. They provide the resources for founders to solve problems effectively and accelerate growth. Kirk-Anthony, thank you so much for being here this morning, and good morning, SKN, and we must say welcome.
Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure indeed. Right off the bat, we want to know what inspired you to start Tech Beach Retreat?
Well, as a founder myself, a few years ago, I came to a realization that if I wanted to innovate in the Caribbean, there were some resources necessary that simply weren't accessible to me, right? And that was regardless of any level of political will, desire, government initiatives, etc. Big companies create certain levels of infrastructure that ultimately make the internet work. And if you don't have this infrastructure, then you are likely to struggle. And there's also a mindset required to build successful tech initiatives, as well as talent and know-how. And I felt like some of this is not accessible in the market, and I decided to go out and identify it and bring it all together, along with my co-founder, Kyle Maloney, and really just create a space where the Caribbean's tech ecosystem, the enthusiasts, the talent, etc., could connect with the ecosystem of the rest of the world and ultimately create value.
Nice.
Absolutely. And in our research, we saw that a lot of notable companies have partnered with the Tech Beach Retreat itself. Who was one of the first?
One of the first, wow. So companies like Microsoft and Twitter have been pretty pioneering in their collaborations with us. So they would definitely have been some of the first. And then one of our biggest marks was landing Google as a headline sponsor of the last Tech Beach Retreat, which was in 2019 here in Jamaica. And we're very proud of our now partnership with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. I know that's not a tech company, but this is one of our proud moments, again, being able to spread the message and the work of Tech Beach, into this part of the world.
So how do these partnerships foster growing companies within the Caribbean regions?
So one of the things we do within Tech Beach that is quite interesting, beyond just, coming and participating in a conference and networking, etc., is that for startups, we actually offer programming, right? Education-based programming, where they're learning from minds from places like Google for Startups, like Microsoft, successful entrepreneurs and successful investors on how to grow their business, how to think about financing, how to look at talent and growing the business through, new employment, etc. So we have created this sideline program that happens alongside the conference. We've been doing it now since 2017. And for it, we partnered with the, thank you very much. We've partnered with the CDB, we've partnered with IDB, we've partnered with World Bank historically, as well as the Development Bank of Jamaica. And this year we decided to reach out to the ECCB and say, hey, would you want to support some entrepreneurs from your part of the world to be involved in something like this? And we got a resounding yes, which is much appreciated. But yeah, that's something that we do for the entrepreneurs that is seemingly very well received and well appreciated, right? We just finished our Miami conference last week, where we did the startup showcase, which kind of is the climax of all the activity that I just mentioned. And, we were setting up one-on-one meetings with entrepreneurs, with investors and such like that. And, the response we've gotten beyond the checks written and these different things that you look for as outcomes, the response we've gotten is really just people feeling a sense of relief and support, that they're getting to connect with people who they otherwise would just never meet, right?
Indeed.
That's really what Tech Beach aims to achieve.
Absolutely. And in terms of actually getting these individuals to apply, or in persons that are interested in applying themselves, what does that process look like, and what does a typical deadline look like?
So with our program with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, we have a Google application. What I would suggest to anyone listening in is just to follow any of the ECCB social media platforms or Tech Beach's social media platforms, and you will find the application there, right? And the application is relatively simple. It does require a 1-minute video, right? And the 1-minute video is just for us to know that you are there, you are real, and for you to say in your own words what it is you're working on and trying to achieve. And then otherwise, the information is just about, what is the business? Where are you going? Where are you from is very important because, just based on the nature of the ECCB, this is very, this opportunity that we're doing now is reserved for entrepreneurs from these territories, right? The best way for me. And so we really want to create a space where entrepreneurs from Eastern Caribbean territories can benefit from all that I've mentioned. So there's nobody who's able to apply for this from, let's say, a Trinidad. They're not going to get, right? In this instance, this is purely Eastern Caribbean states. Okay. And the application probably will take about 10 minutes for someone to complete.
When is the deadline for them to complete it?
The deadline is November 8th. Okay. Right? And we will get responses out pretty quickly in terms of who's accepted. And then we need to move very quickly to booking your flights. Accommodation is already ready and secure. And, we're excited to have everyone join us.
Okay. I know we are just coming off of a COVID pandemic, right? And maybe persons are still trying to get their purses and merces in order. So why didn't you just host one big convention? What is the idea of hosting it both in Miami and Jamaica?
So the idea is very simple. Firstly, we've always hosted in Jamaica, and we actually host in other territories. And the thinking for us is that we want to create a continuous ecosystem for the Caribbean, right? Whether we host a conference or somebody else, conferences happen every day around the world, right? To us, what this does is it creates space where people can participate when they might not be able to participate in other times, right? And then you have people who participate in everything that we do. So even next March, we're having something in Bermuda. We're working on Mexico. We're working on these other territories, with the general thinking being that the more spaces we can carve out is the more spaces and opportunities that people have to connect and build relationships, right? Because relationships aren't built in one shot. You come to a tech beach in Jamaica, you meet a guy from San Francisco. That's not the relationship. You may get along, but the relationship really is the follow-up. Does that person end up coming to St. Lucia 2 months later? Or do you end up in San Francisco? Or do you cross paths in New York? And that's actually the playbook that we're trying to build out for entrepreneurs in the Caribbean. That's what has made us successful, is our movement and our constant, push towards going beyond the shores of our islands and just getting to people, as well as trying to call them in to be a part of what we're trying to build, right? So that's why we're doing multiple.
Good stuff.
So we also, really quickly, Tech Beach is not big. You will not have 1,000 people at a Tech Beach event. And the idea there is we want people to be able to spot opportunity. We want them to have the time and the space to connect with people meaningfully and to drive outcomes, right? Not that you're begging somebody for 2 minutes at a time because they're running off.
Got you. Certainly. Great plan, though.
And in terms of a theme for this year's retreat, is there a theme or is there a general sort of philosophy behind the individuals that will be gathering this year?
For sure. This year's theme is centered around redefining the future. With what happened with COVID, naturally, the vision a lot of people had in let's say 2019, even when we did our last physical staging in Jamaica, would look very different to the one that people have today, right? And so we are now trying to reimagine what the future would look like, even though, Tech Beach has always aimed to somewhat imagine the future. We're now looking at rethinking how different elements of tech come together and, create success for folks. One of the things that we'll be focusing on the most is the fact that with the pandemic, we've now seen that opportunity is really boundless, right? I keep reflecting on the fact that there was a time where someone sitting in my shoes really would be, have these barriers in terms of physical barriers, having to get on planes, if there are even flights, etc. We're now doing this. Here I am doing an interview with you through the use of technology, and it's become so much more normal, right? Because this was possible a few years ago, but now this is beyond accepted, and this is what people want to be able to do, right? So we have to take a look at what can the future actually look like? How can you grow a tech company from the Caribbean, given all that is accessible to us now? I'm meeting Caribbean founders who have teams in, Pakistan and India, right? And the Ukraine, even with all that's going on, they still have teams working for them in these different places, and people are understanding and better learning the playbook in terms of how you can build something from a local base in terms of, sitting down in Anguilla or Antigua while having access to a global space. And that's what our focus is going to be.
Nice. So what kind of typical day at the retreat look like?
So I always say to people, right, the content is actually hosted inside a large theater, very modern, full-on production. But what a day looks like is this. Imagine having at your fingertips a captured audience of global innovators from the region and the rest of the world. They have nowhere to go. They're at a hotel in Montego Bay, Jamaica. There's no office for them to run down the road to and have a quick meeting. There's no, government space for them to go to again, go and have a side meeting or anything of that nature. And it's an all-inclusive resort, right? So all food and drink, once they're on the property, is already thought of and already covered. And so the experience that you get is, the best way for me to put it is just access. At any given point, you can sit with somebody and have a meal at your disposal and not have to think about where it's coming from, who's paying for it, etc. And you have a big stage with a massive screen and some of the best content in the world, bar none. Because one of the things that happens at Tech Beach that we find amazing is that people really let their guard down. Some of the insights that you get are very human, because by the time people come to our event, they have really let go of, ego and some of these other things that we end up building up when we're in, metropolitan cities roving around and we know everybody and all of these different things come together. At Tech Beach, it really is, I think the most human experience you can have at a technology conference.
Nice.
And in terms of this year's speakers, are there any notable speakers?
Oh, yes, for sure. We have Nicholas Brathwaite, who you all might know is originally from Grenada, right? And Nick is a very successful investor in the Bay Area. We have Marlon Nichols, another successful investor who sits on a $500 million fund in North America, originally from Jamaica, right? We have a lady by the name of Tiffany Johnson, who leads a massive program for Amazon through AWS. She'll be giving out tons of resources to Caribbean entrepreneurs. And I want to point to that really quickly for entrepreneurs and investors to understand, right? So Amazon, through their AWS platform, tends to give away something called credits. Credits are effectively money. When entrepreneurs are trying to raise capital, whether they're building on AWS or some other platform, oftentimes quite a bit of the money goes to paying for things like this, as well as social media ads and such like that, right? So one of the things we've sought to do with even these companies that have zero presence in the Caribbean, they don't really have a need to do this. They've just opted to do this for Tech Beach and Tech Beach's entrepreneurs, is they'll come in and they'll say, hey, every entrepreneur is getting $10,000 worth of credits. If you participate in a Tech Beach program, that number can increase significantly. But the basic gist of it is $10,000 worth of credits is actually $10,000, right? If utilized. And so we have someone like her coming to speak. We have a lady named Jenny Fielding, who is a former Techstars lead, who now runs her own fund and has made over 200 early stage investments around the world. In addition to her, we have Melissa Pigos, who is currently with Techstars, right? Techstars is one of the largest accelerators in the world. She leads their Atlanta program, but she also is of Caribbean heritage. So we're very excited about Melissa. She was just in Miami with us, and she's just expressed so much passion for Caribbean entrepreneurs. It's kind of crazy, but that's really what we look for, right? People who want to connect with the region, who want to help, who want to collaborate, and who see opportunity in our market, not just a space where I can give back, quote unquote, but a space where I can make meaningful investments to drive outcomes for my bottom line.